Hello my friends and welcome. We have lots of the news today, and if you follow the channel, you understand that we acquire a new qualification from being topographist, reviewing military maps, to volcanologists, because it seems like the hottest topic nowadays, and Ukraine once again the last night hit multiple of the very sensitive spots for Russians, especially for the Russian oil export. Well, here we have the picture of Perm. This is the main spot, the hub center for the Russian oil to go somewhere for the export to Baltic Sea, to Black Sea, but you see that it's not working for the obvious reason, and 2 days ago it was hit, and the last night it was hit. It seems like Ukraine unleashed everything it has to target lots of the Russian military and oil infrastructure. You know, all of the previous years we were expecting some of the major strike of Ukraine, that Ukraine one day may accumulate lots of the drones and hit Russia really hard. Well, those strikes, they're happening. They're happening regularly. Every night Ukraine launches those drone strikes. Now Perm looks like that, and by the way, they were building some of the new oil tanks in a place, because this one is very important for the Russian logistics, and Ukraine cancelled almost all of the oil tanks in the place. Yeah, this is absolutely no-go, and it will continue to burn for several days at least. One of the oil tanks is intact. By the way, the fire in Tuapse has already been extinguished, but it is not working. It is gone, and will be gone maybe for several years, because everything is being dismantled there. Maybe just few of the oil tanks left, but of course it's not enough for the oil export. Also multiple of the infrastructural buildings are being destroyed, including equipment, which is very sensitive. So Russia right now straight away cannot restore everything of that, and the Russian oil export definitely struggles. Yeah, this image like from the hell itself. Crazy. Yeah, multiple of the tanks are being flatlined, and the fire still sparks with a new force. This is amazing. But as I mentioned you, the refinery in Perm was also hit. Here we have the image. The video. So you saw, yeah? Refinery and the separate oil storage. There is the main volcano, but refinery is also very sensitive. And all of that is creating disturbances within Russia, with the fuel supplies as well, with the oil supplies. Russia has to use refinery capabilities, which is very far away from the European part. And those refineries, let's say, they're not as big as those which are within the range of Ukrainian drone strikes. So they're in a crisis. The crisis is expanding with every Ukrainian drone strike. Russian lady is concerned. Perm is located 1,000 miles away from Ukraine. 1,000 miles. Drones covered the distance, and Russians who were living that far away from Ukraine, they are shocked now. It seems like the war is happening not just in Ukraine, but also deep inside Russia. Perm, Yekaterinburg, which were lately hit, it is so far away that those cities were not touched by the Second World War, the First World War. The last time probably there was some of the confrontation or the war action. Maybe it was a civil war in Russia of 1917, yeah, at the beginning of the last century. And Ukraine does it. So the surprise for Russians is understandable, because they thought that Putin's regime is alrightish. They voted for it, and still majority of Russians, they support Putin's regime, especially outside Moscow. The Russian population is sadly like that. Yes, there is the Russian opposition, but I would say maybe 20% of Russians, judging from the comments in multiple of the videos, and I watch Russian videos on Russian language, I believe that 20% of Russians, they understand, yeah, what is happening, that Putin is a dictator. Yes, they're not that active, they're not protesting, they're just against, let's say, Russian regime. The rest 80%, they either support Russian regime, or they're quite neutral and they don't care. Well, if they don't care, Ukraine doesn't care as well. Ukraine will continue to perform the long-range strikes because the country of Russia started this war. That's usual way how the war is being conducted. The main important thing for Ukraine is not to hit those Russian residential buildings, but to hit Russian logistics and the way of how Russia obtains the money for its military. If Russia sells oil for that, well, it means that the oil infrastructure should be cancelled. And here we have the photo of Tuapse. You see, it was the strike, a very tiny little one, but it led to this tank complete kaput, and the other one kaput, kaboom. Yeah, it's better to say kaboom, yeah. Jeez, and some of the buildings also hit nearby with some of the projectiles. After all, Russians are trying to shut down the Ukrainian drones, but you see, it's not happening as they want. Alright, judging on all of the images coming from the place, it's understandable that Russia lost at least 4 of the reservoirs, 3 confirmed, and 1 of those is on fire. Maybe they're both on fire, and Russia still has 3 of the reservoirs intact, and they were building the new one, because they definitely needed the new capacities for the oil export. Every reservoir is damn huge. The capacity is 50,000 cubic meters, so totally 200,000 cubic meters of capacity is affected. This is crazy, especially if they really need it for the oil export. Ukraine is definitely doing what it can to survive in this confrontation. For Ukraine, it's the existential war, and of course Ukraine will continue to conduct those strikes because that is how Russian military budget really may suffer, and Russian, not just military, but in general Russian economy. And it seems like Ukraine is getting serious about the Kerch area, not the Kerch Bridge itself, but some of the surveillance boats, drone boats, are being sent to the place. Yes, equipped with TNT, and several of the Russian ships were hit there. And it's just, I guess, to check the Russian defense capabilities in the Kerch area. You see that they try to eliminate the threat for them, but Ukrainian drones, they're effective. And just yesterday there was the information that Russia has several of the ships damaged. Yeah, not the big military ships, but patrolling Coast Guard boats. I believe that if Russia continues its strikes on Ukraine, Ukraine may escalate to hit Kerch Bridge once again, but the problem that the construction itself is very robust. So somehow Ukraine should deliver quite a lot of cargo there, very heavy cargo, but it's kind of difficult right now. Russia has patrolling boats, Russia put armored barricades around the Kerch Bridge, so it is very difficult. Aerial drones, well, Ukraine has those, but they usually carry not significant load. 100-120 kilograms, it's enough to disturb some of the Russian oil logistics, refineries, storages, but for the Kerch Bridge, it's just a concrete construction. There is nothing to burn, so potentially there should be a very huge blast of the energy. I think Ukraine still doesn't have this capability. Yeah, some of the damages could be done to the bridge, but to disturb it completely, cancel, flatline, I believe that Ukraine doesn't have still those kind of the tools. And you know, I looked through the image more precisely. It seems like missiles were fired from those drone boats. So Ukraine maybe equipped drone boats with rocket artillery systems and may hit Russian ships from the further distance. Well, I knew about this modification well before, but for the first time we see the visual confirmation about it. Very interesting. Wow, an interesting case happened with the Butcher of Bucha, a commander of the Russian brigade that went to Bucha at the very beginning of the war. Well, not just Bucha, Gostomel, Irpin, and lots of the other settlements very close to Kiev, where Russians did all of those atrocities, war crimes. The Bucha is just this sounding name, yeah, Bucha. But actually Bucha is not that big compared to, let's say, Irpin, and Russians did absolutely the same out there. So this guy has been cancelled, flatlined, or kaboomed, yeah, here kaputed and kaboomed, because of the explosion that occurred on April 28th. So 2 days ago there was the explosion in military garrison located in the village of Knyaz Volkonskaya in the Khabarovsky Krai. Khabarovsk is very far away. This is far east of Russia, thousands of miles away from Ukraine. And somehow there was kaboom. The channels claim that there was a device allegedly planted in a mailbox. One person kaputed, he was one of the commanders, his name was Lieutenant Colonel Kuzmenko. Several people were injured, and this guy is Omurbekov, and his condition is yet unknown, but some of the channels report that he was kaputed as well. Also, pro-government 5th channel reported about the kaboom happened in a military branch of Khabarovsky Krai, so this information is not some sort of the rumors. This was confirmed also by Russian official channels and military bloggers. So yes, we cannot state that he was kaputed by 100%. Judging now, I read it, yes, by 100% we cannot state it, but something went wrong with him and he is not responding. So I guess in a couple of days we're gonna see if there is a funeral ceremony. It means that this information is legit. Alright guys, now let's go to topography, the frontline updates and what is happening. Oh, Russia lost 2 more rocket artillery systems not that far away from Melitopol. Or maybe those are, yeah, Tornado S was hit. We have this picture showing definitely this vehicle. And here we have a video itself, Russian convoy. It was a middle strike of Ukrainian drone unit Luftwaffe, 222nd Brigade. They overfly those. Oh, this is the air defense AA cannon, let's call it. One more truck, the same one. And finally Tornado S. That's one of the biggest. Well, I hope they hit the system because this is, yeah, with the right bank, I think they hit it after all. Yeah, sometimes on those videos without surveillance drone flying nearby, it's definitely hard to tell. And it's happening in Melitopol, a previously very safe area for Russians because it's very far away from the front lines. It was the main goal, by the way, of the Ukrainian counteroffensive of 2023. Oh, this is the air defense, Tor M2, which was hit. Oh yeah, I already showed it in one of my recent videos. Fantastic. We have the geolocation. And now let's go to the front lines themselves. There was the motorized attack of the Russian army performed not that far away from Timirivka and Stepova. Russians tried to regain the lost positions during the major Ukrainian counteroffensive action for the last couple of months, maybe 3 months. Ukraine regained more territories here. Well, Russia sent more forces. Let's check it out. Yeah, we see the all-terrain vehicle they use and motorcycles, of course. Unarmored vehicles like UAZ, Bukhanka vans. Yeah, mostly on the motorcycles they try to advance. Also artillery, which was hidden in this area, was hit, and multiple of the Wi-Fi router bridges. Plus Russian penguins, which became mainstream already. So Bukhanka van, couple of the trucks, everything of that was geolocated on the way to reach Ukrainian positions, but those were not reached by Russians. All of them are being caputed in their so-called controlled territory or in the gray zone. The gray zone is here. Russians made it to Stepova even. But of course not for a long time. Ukrainian 160th Brigade did the job properly. There are also some of the videos with the infantry, but I cannot show you them for this YouTube channel because yeah, I want to avoid restrictions. Some of the vehicles, motorcycles, I guess it's okay, but infantry is better not to show. Yeah, I mean pictures of the infantry is okay, but if they're cancelled, yeah, it's better to avoid that stuff. And now the major fight is ongoing for Konstantinivka. Russia also has some of the attack attempts from Bakhmut, and in Konstantinivka itself there are lots of the drones, both from Russian and Ukrainian sides. Russia tries to enter the settlement from Ilinivka, and they're being cancelled in the city itself. However, Russians managed to put a couple of the flags here. I guess it's temporary. Alright, not long time ago, Sweden had detained this cargo vessel Kafa that was under the sanctions, and now it's been confirmed that Sweden may even confiscate this ship and send it to Ukraine. So Sweden confiscated already confiscated Russian ship of the Shadow Fleet for possible transfer to Ukraine. It's about the cargo ship Kafa, detained in March, which is on the sanction list, so this is the precedent, yeah? This is unprecedented precedent, which opens the opportunity for European countries, yes, acting via Sweden. It seems like their legislation is working fine for confiscation of the Shadow Fleet ships. And I would say that's one more leverage on the Russians for their cargo ships and for their oil tankers. Yeah, Sweden has confiscated cargo. Oh, fantastic, awesome news.
Очень вкусный пирог.
Putin is probably unhappy about everything what is happening in Russia. He was filmed like that on some of the conference. This should go on the thumbnail. Some lady's voice in the background says that it's the pie which is very tasty. Yeah, we see how tasty it really is. Tasty pie. Alright, fantastic news actually. Syrskyi has signed an order introducing mandatory rotation for service members performing tasks on the front line, because before there were multiple of the cases that our guys were deployed to particular frontline area and stayed there for several months. And it's crazy, being in the same position for such a long period of time, obtaining supplies in the best case scenario with the drones or unmanned vehicles. Oh my God, this was terrible. And now there is the legislation in Ukrainian army which cancels the previous practice. And under the new rules, troops will remain in positions up to 2 months. So at least like that, yeah, 2 months, not more. If some of the local commander extends this period of time, well, it will be investigated and there could be even a persecution done against this commander. So it is good, it is great. And for those rotation operations, Ukraine absolutely needs transport to deliver supplies, to change infantry on the front lines. And that's why we have launched the fundraise campaign with the 69 Sniffing Brigade, where we collect the funds for the pickup trucks, especially made for the mission. They go through the maintenance in Estonia, later on they're being delivered to Ukraine, so they're very versatile vehicles and our army needs those crucially. So previously I recorded a separate video about this fundraise, and you see we have already collected $28,000 for the few hours since this campaign is alive. This is crazy. So the goal is 48 for a few of the vehicles. And if it goes like that, maybe I'm gonna call and maybe we'll expand the goal, but I also need to consult just for us maybe to buy more vehicles. Yeah, I'll see, because I wanted to have a dedicated stream this evening to reach the sum, but it looks like we're reaching it before the stream even. And guys, you're just amazing. So how to donate? You just go, you select the way how you pay, and you may write your comment on the wall, and on the stream I'm gonna read those comments. And you'll also obtain those fantastic patches. Let me show you them from the close perspective. Yeah, those patches, they're fantastic. I think especially Kaboom, I like it a lot. And of course the Observe Volcano, this is up to date what we have there. Yeah, I think we have the most awesome patches out there. So guys, please participate. The link is in the video description below. Obviously, if you can. I'm not begging you, I'm just telling that it's a good thing to help Ukraine right now, especially knowing that those pickup trucks will go to the proper destination, to those people who require them. And it's not about weaponry, it's about logistics, supplies. Vehicles are not rifles, they're not missiles. So even if you are against, spending money for some of the weapons, we are not collecting for weapons in this particular case, in this fundraise, just for the pickup trucks. Oh, Ukraine has created a drone simulator in the open world game GTA 5. So now there is the software that allows to fly in the game itself and hit absolutely everything. There is the physics for it, and our drone operators, they're flying. Well, it's not exactly what people see on the front lines, but at least some of the practice. Well, I would like to try, honestly. I have a controller for FPV drone. Yeah, the open... Okay, it works with all of the objects, it seems like. Maybe they're gonna release this extension on Steam, it could be quite popular, I'm sure about it. Meanwhile, Russians are testing the paint grenade to block the view for the drone operators, then the drone is flying very close. What do you think? Will it work? Well, I think it's the very, very close range device. And also, you see, from the moment the guy pushed the button or something, or maybe pulled some rope to activate the paint blast, well, lots of the time has passed since that, and of course he would have been flatlined multiple of the times already by fast FPV drones, so I don't think that it's the solution. Also, it might blind the Russian soldier himself, and he would not find a way to go, where to go, and... yeah. Oh, one more notice from Strelkov Girkin. Even from prison he is capable to write. He says that even a new mobilization will not change the situation for the Russian army on the front lines. He said that at this stage it is useless. Previously, other Russian military bloggers as Davydov and Fighter Bomber, they mentioned the similar picture. Strelkov said that mobilization was needed in the spring of 2022 and 2023, maybe 2024 and perhaps spring 2025, but now mobilization is catastrophically late. Now the mobilization in the form in which it perceived by the majority of the population of Russia will not bring any result. Now there is the war of drones, which are capable of destroying any number of infantry deploying to the battlefield. I agree. The enemy, so Ukraine, has set up the drone production in Ukraine and outside Ukraine, so now able to hold the front almost entirely with the drones. In fact, it is already happening, and I would agree, just occasionally Ukraine counterattacks. The main idea for Ukraine is just to provide adequate supplies for the second line of defense for Ukrainian drone operators, and they fly. They also aim towards even the Russian drone positions. So large masses of people and equipment will be kaputted without achieving any success. That is what Girkin says, and that is what is happening. All of those Russian convoy attacks, if you look at what is happening, this is crazy. He also criticized Peskov's statement that there are just few kilometers left from entire occupation of Donbas. Sorry, Strukov says, but it's a bluff and lies. Well, it's nothing new for the person, for the department he represents. Whether it's the few kilometers or a few dozen kilometers, the war must be waged to win, not to cover a few kilometers, littering them with the corpses of their own soldiers. So those are the most fortified areas of Donbas which are left. Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Drushkivka, everything of that. And Strukov knows that. So try to get those few kilometers, Russians. Yeah, they're trying, but nothing is happening. You can mobilize as many people as you want to the front, but they won't be able to turn the outcome of the war. This moment has passed. Strukov said that he called for mobilization for 4 years, but he is not calling for it any longer because he says that it's useless and meaningless. We and our economy do not have even enough weapons to arm them. Crazy, yeah? And definitely, if you look at the Russian tactics, for example, here is their group, they are going somewhere, taking new positions, they have one wounded guy, they went all to one of the buildings on the front lines, and just look at that, the small Ukrainian drone passes through the window, yeah, passed inside, and probably they had some of the fuel or maybe ammunition inside, and this facility is no-go. This is how Russia acts, so it doesn't matter really if they announce a new mobilization. Well, our guys will just earn more points and the Russian population will decline. That's the major success, yeah, for the Russian army. Well, maybe Russians might take some more ground on the front lines, but Ukrainian front line, it's no go for Russians. That's why I started to hear like new ideas from the Russian army to attack, for example, to Kyiv Oblast once again, to Sumy Oblast, Chernigiv, something like that, where Ukrainian defense lines are not that robust compared to Donbas. They're definitely cornered, and some experts say that Russia is even looking for the solution to fight against the armies which are not that drone capable, like for example countries of the Baltic states. Their armies are relatively small, they do not have this kind of the military experience on the front lines, so Putin may think that he might win over there and present to Russians at least some of the victory, or exchange, for example, part of the occupied territories of the Baltic states for canceling the military support for Ukraine from the European Union countries or from NATO. Maybe he thinks like that, but it is possible, I mean, this kind of the escalation. But Ukraine, nevertheless, is the shield of Europe, and what is happening in Ukraine matters. That's why I'm here, guys, telling you about the current situation on the front line all the time. And not just on the front line, the situation in general, in the world politics as well. Alright guys, it's all what I want to say for today. Today I also gonna launch the stream, so please join. It's gonna start in a few hours, 8 p.m. Berlin time, so 8 in the evening, 20:00. Yeah. The goal of the stream is, of course, to get as much support as possible for the trucks for Ukraine. Probably gonna add one more truck to the goal of the campaign because it goes very, very well. So thank you guys for your awesome support for Ukraine. You're the best, and yeah, see you on the stream. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.